All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Through the Roof, a consumer-focused podcast where we talk about all things metal roofing and sometimes post-frame buildings. I am here with my co-host, Adam Clark.
Hey, what's up, Mason?
I'm Mason Burchett, and you know who it is.
That's right.
Look who we've got in the house.
What's up, East Tennessee? You know who it is. What's up, East Tennessee? You know who it is. What's up, East Tennessee? You know who it is. What's up, East Tennessee?
We got Phil Freeze, the owner of Flow Roofing, with us.
So glad to be here going through the roof today. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely, thanks, Phil. Phil is the man, the myth, and the legend, and he was one of our earliest partners that came to buy materials from us.
He believed in us when no one else did.
He believed in us. He took a chance on us, and we've grown an outstanding partnership together. And now we're all just chilling in this room doing a podcast.
I love it.
So, yeah. But Adam, we've got some cool conversation queued up today with Phil.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be a little bit of a different spin this week. We normally talk about products or paint or manufacturing. But as we talk about as being a consumer-focused podcast, today we're going to talk about what a customer should expect from a contractor experience, because there's a lot of people out there who don't know what to expect, and there's a lot of contractors out there that take advantage of the fact that they don't know what to expect, and they provide subpar service, subpar education and confidence, and that's not what Phil does.
It's not what Phil does.
So Phil, I guess start us off. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into the roofing game, and then we can kind of transition into some of your differentiators in terms of how you deal with your customers.
Sure. Lots of ways to start out who you are, right? First and foremost, I'm a dad, actually. Tyler, my son, you guys see him in here all the time.
Oh, yeah.
He's employee number one for Flow Roofing. So dad number one, fiance, veteran, just somebody who loves to work hard and help people. And that's how I ended up in roofing. Worked as a professional salesperson in different capacities, but ultimately, reached what I thought was the pinnacle of sales in pharmaceuticals, and ended up being disenchanted a little bit because although you had these products that could help people, access to them or access to your customers to get the products to them was limited. And somebody approached me about helping people through in-home contractor sales, and that's how I ended up in roofing. And, the customer experience is really what drove me to start my own roofing company is, I felt like there was a better way to treat the customer and to interact with the customer. And it's not about rewriting the playbook. It's really just following the playbook that's been established for a long time that some people just lose track of, right? You deal a lot with the customer here, which is different for a distributor in roofing.
Mm-hmm.
For you, most of the time it's contractor interactions, but you guys focus on the customer and the end user itself, which is unique. And so you guys can also speak to customer experience, and I'm sure some of the things that I'll mention are not foreign to you when you're speaking to homeowners, such as I've called so many people and I can't get anybody to call me back.
Mm-hmm.
How many times has somebody called here and just been surprised that Blake answered the phone or that you guys were here and working? So, the customer experience dies when you don't answer your phone. And so for a lot of people, they're left wanting when it comes to interacting with a contractor because they can't even get step one down, which is making that initial contact. And so we make it a real strong effort to always be there for our customers. But, I think there's a level of ownership that is also lost with the contractor in what we do in helping customers, and that is protections for our customers. Roofing is the wild, wild west, especially here in Knoxville.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people have heard the term chuck in a truck, but really there's a new roofing company started every week, and that's because everybody's got a roof.
Right.
And the the dynamics of how companies start, it doesn't take long to have the perception of an established, company that does great work and has this big portfolio of business. But, a lot of that's smoke and mirrors. The internet can do a lot of things for people. And so despite what a contractor may look like online, there are a few things that they need to do to ensure that your experience is great.
Yeah.
And that is carrying the appropriate insurance and having the appropriate licensing, so the wild, wild west becomes tame.
Well,
Right.
those two things are, so we talk about like the barrier of entrance to an industry, and like it doesn't cost much to buy a ladder and put it on top of a truck or a car, which we've seen.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people can just say, I'm a roofer today. I woke up and I'm going to be a roofer today. And they might not have any experience. They might just think, oh, I understand what a roof looks like. I have a roof on my house. I'm going to go and do that. And if a homeowner isn't prepared to have conversations about, hey, are you insured? Do you have a license? Are you somebody that's going to be a liability to me? Or do you have coverage that prevents that liability from falling on me as a homeowner?
Well, I had this conversation the other day about how roofing companies start. And a lot of time it's not that guy who says, oh, that looks easy. It's someone who works for a roofer in town,
Sure.
maybe becomes disenchanted and has a deal that they can take and call their own and make a quick hit.
Boom, I'm a roofer.
I'm a roofer and I'm rich.
Yeah.
And then there's everything else that goes with it.
Yeah.
And you had talked about barriers to entrance, right? I thought about this because I think a lot about what I do and what I spend to protect my customers and make sure that they're protected. And I had this analogy come to mind where, I have an emergency and disaster management degree with a concentration in Homeland Security. And that degree allowed me to sell pharmaceuticals. I needed to have a degree, didn't matter what it was, but the company needed to see that I was dedicated enough and that I had the follow through and the wherewithal to go through the 4 years of college and get that degree. Well, I want customers to know that the barrier of entrance to a contractor coming and even talking to you about a project should be that they took the day-and-a-half class
Right.
to become a licensed contractor in Tennessee, and then took the test and passed it.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of time. But what it does show is that they take your project seriously, no matter what it is. I'm speaking on roofing as a whole, but there's a wide range of horror stories I hear in people's homes about hiring a contractor, wasn't licensed, there was no recourse. That should be the barrier of entrance for a contractor coming to your home. And I hate to put the onus on homeowners because they should expect that when they go to Google and find a contractor, that contractor is doing everything they should to be right. But there is a level of ownership that homeowners have to take to vet their contractors. The Secretary of State website. You can go there and find out if a contractor has a contractor's license. You can ask somebody for their insurance when they come to your house. I proactively do that.
You probably should. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it makes people astonished every time I do it. Here's my license. Here's all of my insurance. Wow. Nobody gives us this.
Yeah.
But that's part of the customer experience.
Can we go back a second and talk about communication in particular? Because that is typically the first thread that gets a sales transaction or a relationship transaction going. And, we see it and hear it all the time where, like you said, we've called and called. We can't get a hold of anybody. What the heck's going on? And I see you on your phone all the time, taking customer calls, calling customers, giving them updates, even communicating with us. And I think sometimes we get stuck in this world of text messages and emails, which have a role to play. But what's your perspective on communicating with customers by phone? And, where do you think the risk to a homeowner is if they have a hard time getting a hold of their contractor?
Well, the risk for any homeowner who can't get a hold of their contractor is the disappointment and frustration that everybody feels when something is important to them and doesn't feel as important to somebody else who's tied to it. I really understand, especially when it comes to roofs, right? Water coming in, questions about longevity of the roof. These things are expensive, and there's automatically emotion tied to it, not just because there could be potential damage happening to their home, but because of the oftentimes expensive costs to fix them, and other people out there maybe misdiagnosing, right? And so, there's a bigger part to why a lot of this happens. Naturally, companies hire salespeople who are paid to sell things, right? And without generating revenue, their paychecks suffer. And so a lot of times, if there is no financial benefit to a salesperson, that might not be the image or the way the company itself, its company standards, but, a guy's got to eat. And so, a customer whose job may be small but provide no financial gain to a salesperson may be ghosted. And so I see that happen quite a bit. For me, every person is so important because of what they could say about us as a company and who we look like to the rest of the community. And so, I answer the phone. I also let customers dictate what type of communication method is best for them. We're installing a green metal roof for a customer who I don't have their phone number, but we email back and forth consistently because that's what she's comfortable with. If somebody wants to text, that's fine. But I am very cautious that anytime emotion becomes involved, it is a face-to-face visit.
Right.
And I think that is where a lot of respect is gained because we are not perfect. And it's not always easy to show up when things aren't going exactly how you thought they were, or the picture you painted didn't turn out as rosy. Things happen, but
it's easy for people who don't care to not show up.
Well, it's and it's not easy to show up when you do care. But at the end of the day, when you always take the high road for your customer and deliver what you promise, even if it's painful to you, either in time or a financial burden, at the end of the day, there'll always be another job, and each customer, if small or big, carries the equal amount of weight as it pertains to who we are as a company, and that is full roof replacement or a little silicone on a roof. Whatever it is, you mean the same. And I think that, people feel that. We hear everybody's going to get a contractor to show up to do a full roof replacement. Hey, ABC Roofing, I need my roof replaced. Great.
Right.
We'll come give you a price. As a matter of fact, I can tell you what it is right now over the phone.
Sure.
And we'll finance it.
That's right. Yeah. But these people who have a couple shingles blown off or have a more protracted timeline where there could be insurance involved and it's not a guarantee that the roof will be replaced, and they just need someone to show up and advocate for them with the adjuster or make a phone call to an insurance company. Those are the people who typically end up getting lost. It's the minor things. People lead on the phone with me. Hey, Phil, I know this may be too small for you. Well, you wouldn't be calling me if it was a small issue for you.
Right.
So it's not a small issue. Let's get it handled.
That's a great way to think. We talk about making the customer the hero of the story, and a lot of times companies are guilty of making themselves the hero.
Right.
And they do have that approach. It's too small of a job for us to take care of, but it's not too small for it to be a problem to the customer.
Right.
And so you can make them the hero of the story.
Yeah, and it's the right thing to do, but it also has positive repercussions. I look at your Google reviews and
how many Google reviews have you got? How many 5-star Google reviews?
We are up to 126, but nobody at Flow Roofing's counting that sort of
right.
thing.
Yeah,
We don't look at them at all.
But are all of them full roof replacements?
No,
Exactly.
no, not at all. And some of them aren't even repairs. I ask everybody who I interact with to leave an honest review about their interaction with me. And, gosh, if every person who said they would left the review, we'd be 3 times that.
Sure.
We're thankful for the people that were able to help. There's no obligation to leave a review, but it really helps us get in front of people who need help like you did. And so we ask everybody for reviews, and the ones that mean the most really aren't the full roof replacements. It's that person who was told they need a roof replacement, and ultimately they had a tiny nail hole in their roof that just needed some silicone. Now, does that require maintenance over time? Sure, but it doesn't require a full roof replacement.
Sure.
And they're the ones who really get me excited, because that pulls in those people that have a hard time, getting anyone to show up.
Right.
That's always been the thing that's been impressive about your company, Phil, is that you have this perspective on just being helpful and being transparent. If a customer needs a full roof replacement, you'll do it the right way, which I think is really great. But if they don't, you're willing to say, hey, could I make more money replacing this roof? Yeah, for sure. Am I going to sacrifice my integrity and my willingness to be good and transparent and helpful to this customer? No way. It's just not worth it, because down the road, there's good fruit that comes from treating people the right way.
Sure, I consider myself a farmer that anybody I interact with is planting seeds. How they bear fruit down the road, I don't know. It may just be that I have somebody else I call a friend, and that works for me. But the customer experience goes deeper than just me. I'm your customer, and there's definitely value in the way that you guys interact with your customers that trickles down to how I get to interact with my customers. Sure. And it comes to adding value. There have been multiple times in the past couple of months, I can't believe I'm going to say this to the guys who make panels, that we've saved customers from having to replace all the panels on their roof. Sure. Because you introduced me to a better replacement screw, extending the lifespan of people's roofs and putting serious money, thousands and thousands of dollars, back in their pockets. Yeah. And so, but that's something that you guys did for me as your customer, without any sort of request. And, that value then just gets passed on and increases my customers' customer experience. I get a great review for saving them money, but ultimately that should be a review for you guys.
Yeah, well, we want to see you succeed and get the reviews, because that helps us too. And honestly, we talk about you a lot to our customers, and that's something that makes it really easy when we can say, a customer comes in and we don't install the roofs, so it's really easy for us to say, hey, go check out Flow Roofing. Look at their Google reviews and let that kind of speak for itself. You were talking about how some fly-by-night contractors can fabricate how they look online. It's tough to fabricate 126 5-star reviews overnight, right?
Well, it's tough to get 126 5-star reviews, for sure. But it's really about showing up. Activity, being busy, and getting in front of as many people in as many different ways as possible. And I think the thing that keeps me going is knowing that I'm not even scratching the surface, right? That there are other people out there, whether they're just not getting the service they need because they can't find a contractor, or they found one and they found out that they weren't the contractor for them. Sure. Those are the people who, I want to go help out and, bring them a better customer experience. Because at the end of the day, we fight this as an industry. I've never said a cross word about another roofing contractor to a customer. But I definitely pound on roofing as a whole, because of what it is. As I'm, like I mentioned earlier, no license requirements, because there is a license requirement, but nobody checks it because there's no permits and all these other things. So I try and highlight what our industry does to fail customers as opposed to individual contractors. And then, you just can't do those things. Yeah. You have to show up for your customer and answer the phone, and never be accused of under-communicating, and keeping them fully aware of everything that goes on.
If you had a public service announcement to homeowners and you were saying, hey, here are some things to kind of watch out for when you're interacting with roofing contractors, what are some things that you would just caution homeowners to think about, or if they see something to reconsider or reach out to you, for a second opinion if there's something that doesn't feel quite right?
Sure. Roofing's come a long way technology-wise. I mean, you guys have tools here that you're able to get on a roof from the air and price it out, right? And that's prudent in very specific situations. I'm just curious, what does my roof cost? But a lot of times for me, what I'm going out for is, Phil, I'm really concerned. I have a water spot on my roof, right? And so ultimately the first thing any roofer should do is get on the roof, right? And that sounds very basic, but it doesn't happen all the time. And I hear it from customers regularly. After I get off the roof and we talk about the components we would use to build their roof and what it would cost. And man, the other guy didn't even get on my roof. He told me he would order a roof measurement. Well, how many of those people don't need a roof replacement and are being sold a full roof because that's what they thought they needed? I'd be upset if I went into the mechanic shop and told him I thought I needed a muffler and he replaced it, but I needed to change a spark plug. And so customers don't typically replace or fix their roofs because they don't know how. So be the professional and get on the roof, educate them, get in their attic, find out really where it's coming from and make sure that the customer knows. That's number one, is make sure that this person is doing their job to educate you on exactly what is wrong. But then the flip side of that is giving you a solution that makes sense. If you've got a small water spot on your ceiling, in what world does a full roof replacement sound like a solution?
Right.
It doesn't. You have a spot in your bathroom. That sounds like a pipe boot right off the bat. It doesn't sound like you need to replace your whole roof. Most roofs can be maintained to extend the life of the system. And so if your roofer isn't talking to you at all about managing, maintaining, and repairing your roof, and only talking about replacing it, that should be a big red flag.
Sure.
If on the first date somebody's asking you to marry them, you might run for the hills, right? You might want to date them a little bit first.
Yeah.
Let's find out. There's so many little things. Water is crazy, right? It finds its way in. Let's stop it first. Let's see. My dad always told me, try the easiest thing first. And it's the same with roofs.
Yeah.
And I stress maintenance because I know this isn't the maintenance conversation, but that's something that no roofer really talks about.
Sure.
Because, again, it's relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of the cost of roofing items. And it extends the life of the roof. And I think a lot of roofers stay away from talking about maintenance because ultimately they feel like it could take money out of their pocket. And that's not serving the customer, and that's not providing them a good experience.
There's just so much need out there. I think it's just really short-sighted to think, oh, I have to convert every opportunity to a full roof replacement. That's just being short-sighted and not realizing how big our communities are and how many opportunities there really are. And if you're doing the right things and having the right activity, you're going to stay as busy as you want, right? I mean, you don't have a hard time staying busy.
No, no, it's not hard to stay busy, but it is hard to scale and stay busy, right? And so we're managing that and, still doing everything we can to provide our customers with timely appointments and all the things
hired
that they need.
An employee.
That's right. Employee number one, mini-me.
Well, this is what we're talking about is one of the reasons we're so excited to work with you, Phil, is because you think of customers this way. I mean, I've made large purchases. I think of buying a vehicle that you feel like you got talked into, you don't want the reputation of selling somebody a roof that didn't really need one, and they went through with it, and then they're sitting around, 2 months later and thinking, man, did did I just get sold a roof that I didn't really need?
Yes, it wasn't leaking before.
Right.
It's not leaking now.
Yeah, but they got pressured into it or whatever the situation was.
Well, you said pressure, and this is something I experience with customers regularly. People ask me, Phil, how do you close customers and things like that? As somebody who has always sold, I've always believed if I can provide my customers with the information they need to make a good decision and the steps needed to solve the problem and all that, then it really just comes down to the price. And I'm not going to pressure you in any way because I understand it's a lot of money. I hear from customers all the time when I give them a price. Okay, Phil, well, we're not going to make a decision today. Well, look, I'm not asking you to, right? I didn't say this is my price right now. Take it right now.
It expires in 12 hours.
Yes, that's the tact of other contractors. Not all contractors, but that's something that I know people are experiencing, not necessarily just in roofing, but I think everywhere. Hey, I'm going to give you this really big price, but then I'm going to reduce it by half and say, that's my today discount. You have to buy today. If your contractor is serious about providing you the best experience, pressure does not enter that conversation at all. And that includes, buying today and all that, same day discounts. That's not fair to do to a customer who may want to talk to their spouse or get guidance from somebody else about the process.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about, if as much as you're comfortable with it, what expectations you have for customers in terms of how much money they put up front? Because I think that's something that I've heard kind of some horror stories where, a contractor asks for a deposit and then a week later they ask for a bigger deposit and then a week later they ask for a bigger deposit before they did any work on the roof. And to me, that feels like red flags. But I mean, what's your experience with creating that customer experience around the price of the project?
So I have a few thoughts on that. And one, I have to tell you guys who I am as a person to go back to how I operate in this manner. I trust everybody from the moment I meet them. That I'm not we're going to spend a lot of time building trust. If I'm in front of you and we're talking about your home and we've agreed that I'm the person to do the job, I trust you. We're friends now.
Right.
And so with that, I'm going to do your job and not ask you to pay for it until we're done.
Yeah.
A lot of that is because of the stigma that is put on contracting as a whole. Deposits that people have run with, paying for something that doesn't get finished or gets finished in a bad way. I'm going to get burnt by that thought process one day, but I run a business that's prepared for that. Yeah. But I just think it's only fair and it provides the best experience for a customer when they know that I believe in what we do so much that we'll pay for the materials, I'll pay my guys to install it, and then I'm going to show up afterwards so you can look at the roof with me and tell me what you think. And up until now, no one's ever said, Phil, I'm not going to pay you.
Yeah.
All right.
They look up at the roof and say, you were right, Phil. Great job. And we square up. But
another thing about that too is I think it helps the customer feel like, well, if this guy wants to get paid, he's going to complete my project in a relatively timely manner.
Well, let's talk about a barrier to entry, right? And this is tell the homeowner some things to look out for. The world of roofing is run on credit earned with your distributors. Mm-hmm. And so anybody who needs a down payment for materials hasn't built the credit with their distributors to have that material delivered and then wait a predetermined amount of time to pay it. Yeah. And if they're a good contractor and your roof isn't a McMansion, that should be a matter of days and not weeks. Yeah. And so that cycle should always fund itself. Yeah. A contractor who's asking for a down payment either has no credit or has bad credit. And both of those things should sound alarms. Yeah. That paying the guys shouldn't be a problem for any contractor. if they're running a good business.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that you mentioned, maybe somebody in the roofing world who's working for somebody else sees a good opportunity to go do one on their own. And they think they're rich at the end of that project, not realizing how cash flow works and not realizing how preparing for the next project requires some of that cash flow. And I think that is where a lot of roofers get in trouble, and they have to ask for a deposit on their next job to cover some of the money that they've already spent from their get rich quick opportunity. And so, yeah, I mean, I would absolutely caution homeowners when it comes to, what does a deposit need to look like? And I do think that there are some circumstances where maybe a deposit does make sense, but it shouldn't feel unorganized. It shouldn't feel made up on the spot. There should be processes. And if your contractor doesn't have those processes, you may pick up the phone and call Flow Roofing and try to get a better experience.
Well, it should be fully documented on a written out proposal, whether that's in person on a form that is already pre-prepared that they just put information in specific to your case.
Sure.
Or what we do at Flow Roofing is an emailed written proposal that describes everything to include what our payment terms are.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting a written proposal of some form or fashion from your roofing contractor, the alarm bells should be going off there as well. We're talking about hard-earned money here.
That's right.
Your contractor should be bringing their A game to let you know they're serious about taking care of most people's biggest investment, their house.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great. I think that's gonna have to wrap it up, boys. We're getting a little
that was really
long-winded
good.
here.
Phil, great insight, man. I appreciate it. And we get to talk to you regularly, but being able to kind of sit down and think through your perspective of creating this unique customer experience is just really cool, because that matters so much to us. And sometimes we can only take it so far, and knowing that we have a partner who can kind of continue on with some of the high status customer experience, that is so important for us.
Yeah, I mean, we started True Metal Supply because we believe in true service. We want to have a really unique customer service experience for the end user. And that's why you've been such an excellent partner. There's been plenty of times, Phil, me and you have been on the phone and maybe something wasn't going exactly the way we wanted it to on a project. And the conversation always starts with, hey, what do we need to do to get the customer taken care of? We'll figure out what happened on our end later, but what do we need to do to take care of the customer right now? And the fact that we're able to have those conversations together, and we can trust that that's the mindset you've got out there in the field, it creates an outstanding customer service experience for the end user.
Well, it definitely makes a difference for me knowing that there are other people out there with the same mindset. And not just that, but part of the customer experience just comes from hard work. People don't see what happens behind the scenes. Nobody knows the schedule that you two gentlemen keep and how hard you work. And it all shows up in your customer experience. That's why I really enjoy calling you guys partners, and know that this is going to put a metal roof on a lot of houses in Knoxville. That's for sure.
Let's go. All right. That'll do it for this episode of Through the Roof. If you want to listen to more episodes, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you want to get a metal roof on your house, call Phil Freeze at Flow Roofing. He'll come out. He'll do a free inspection of the roof. He'll do a really cool TikTok on your roof, and it's going to be awesome. But for real, call Phil or call us here at True Metal Supply, and we will hook you up with a new metal roof. Hit the subscribe button for us. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.
You know who it is.
I love it.
Love it.